The global perception of Brazilian football is a lie sustained by nostalgia and mythology. You think the era of Brazilian dominance is just on pause, waiting for the next genius to arrive, but forensic analysis shows the patient isn't sleeping, it's dead. For most of the 20th century, that yellow jersey was the ultimate symbol of excellence, mixing street genius with ruthless winning. But that era wasn't ended by bad luck. It was a suicide. We are going to dissect how a culture that refused to modernize, a criminal administration that wanted cash over trophies, and the death of street football dismantled the greatest sporting nation on earth from the inside out. If you want the ugly truth about the beautiful game, then like this video, subscribe to Football Historia, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next autopsy. To understand why Brazil is doomed, you have to go back to the moment the national brain broke. It wasn't the 7-1 loss to Germany, it was July 5th, 1982. Brazil had a team called the Magic Square: Zico, Socrates, Falcao. They played a style that was fluid and artistic. But they lost 3-2 to Italy, a team that was cynical, defensive, and organized. That loss was a cultural trauma. The lesson Brazilian coaches learned was lethal. They decided that to win, they had to stop being Brazilian and start being European. They traded magic for muscle. This started the era of the defensive pivot, relying on two heavy-holding midfielders whose only job was to destroy the game, not create it. You might say, but wait, they won in 1994 and 2002. And that is exactly the problem. Those wins validated the wrong ideas. The 1994 team was built by a fitness trainer, Carlos Alberto Pereira, who treated football like a math equation. He famously said, "Goals are a detail." They won, but they won ugly. It proved to the federation that you didn't need to play beautiful football to get the trophy. Then came 2002. This is the dead cat bounce of Brazilian football. The federation points to this World Cup as proof their system works. It doesn't. That team won because they had Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho, three of the greatest individual talents in history peaking at the exact same time. It was an anomaly. While Europe was starting a tactical revolution with pressing and complex systems, Brazil learned that they could just ignore tactics and rely on individual talent. That arrogance blinded them to the fact that the talent well was about to run dry. While the philosophy was rotting on the field, the suits in the offices were busy turning the Brazilian Football Confederation, the CBF, into what was essentially a criminal enterprise. For 3 decades, the leadership of Brazilian football has been a lineup of guys you'd expect to see on a wanted poster, not a trophy podium. Ricardo Teixeira was indicted for taking millions in bribes and had to flee to Miami. José Maria Moran was arrested in a massive raid and sent to prison in the US for racketeering and money laundering. Marco Polo Del Nero was indicted by the US Department of Justice and basically imprisoned himself in Brazil because he knew if he left the country, he'd be arrested. When your leaders are focused on staying out of jail, they aren't focused on youth development. The corruption goes deep. The CBF president is elected by the state federations. To keep their power, the presidents just buy the votes. They funnel cash to these state bosses for personal expenses to ensure no reform candidate ever wins. It's a feudal system designed to block change. This corruption hit the pitch too. In the mid-2000s, the CBF sold the rights to the national team's friendly matches to marketing firms, often fronts for foreign capital. These contracts actually penalized the team if the top stars didn't play, so instead of playing tough matches against France or Spain to get better, Brazil became a traveling circus. They flew around the world playing meaningless games against weak teams just to cash a check. They'd arrive at the World Cup thinking they were unbeatable because they had beaten nobody of consequence for 4 years. But the problem isn't just the suits, it's the streets. The myth of the Brazilian player, the improviser, the trickster, comes from the várzea. These were the dirt pitches and uneven streets where kids played unsupervised for hours. The bad surfaces forced them to develop insane ball control and creativity. That world is gone. Real estate speculation killed it. In cities like São Paulo, those dirt fields are now high-rise condos, and because of crime, parents don't let their kids play in the street anymore. The street has been replaced by the Escolinha, the soccer academy. These are played on perfect synthetic turf in gated communities. The kids are coached from age 5. They are told exactly when to pass and where to stand. We are seeing the mechanization of talent. Brazil is producing players who are physically fit and technically good, but they are robotic. They lack the ginga, the sway and cunning that made Brazil special. They are just formatted copies of European Academy players, and as soon as they show promise, they are sold. Brazil is the world's biggest exporter of footballers. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Endrick, they are signed by European superclubs at 16 and leave the second they turn 18. This creates a massive disconnect. These players complete their development in Europe. They learn European systems, risk-averse, efficient, structured. But when they come back to play for Brazil, they are coached by Brazilian managers who don't understand those systems. The software doesn't match the hardware. Plus, the fans don't connect with them. They see these guys as mercenaries for Real Madrid or Chelsea, not Brazilian heroes. This creates a toxic environment every time they play at home. This brings us to the biggest competitive disadvantage Brazil has right now: the coaches. While Europe was going through a tactical renaissance with data analytics and pressing triggers, Brazil stayed on an island. The domestic league is a disaster for tactical growth. Coaches get fired so fast, often after just 3 losses, that they never have time to build a complex offensive system. So what do? They play it safe. They pack the defense and rely on motivation. They talk about passion and grit rather than tactics. The certification gap is embarrassing. The UEFA Pro license in Europe is like a PhD in coaching. It takes years. In Brazil, coaching education was a joke for decades, missing huge concepts like tactical periodization or advanced data analytics. The global market knows this. Look at the top clubs in England, Spain, or Italy. There are no Brazilian managers. They are unemployable at the elite level because their methods are obsolete. This structural rot has shown up in 5 consecutive World Cups. These weren't accidents. They were autopsies of a failing system. In 2006, Brazil had the magic square again with Ronaldo, Adriano, Kaká and Ronaldinho. But they were lazy and arrogant. In the quarter-final against France, Zinedine Zidane, who was 34 years old, absolutely schooled them. The winning goal happened because the Brazilian stars just refused to track back and mark Thierry Henry. It was laziness born of entitlement. In 2010, they tried the tough guy approach with Dunga, but the team was emotionally fragile. As soon as things went wrong against the Netherlands, they panicked. Felipe Melo stomped on a guy and got a red card. The team had no plan B, just anger. Then came 2014, the 7-1. The defining image of the decline. Germany played modern positional football. They exploited the spaces Brazil left open like it was a training exercise. Brazil's captain, David Luiz, was running around the midfield like a headless chicken, leaving the defense wide open. It was chaos versus organization, and chaos got slaughtered. In 2018, they had a better coach in tight, but they still got outsmarted. Belgium's manager targeted specific weaknesses in Brazil's setup, and Brazil couldn't adjust until they were already down 2-0. And finally, 2022. This one hurts the most because it was pure stupidity. Brazil was winning 1-0 against Croatia in extra time. There were 4 minutes left. A European team would have parked the bus, faked injuries, and killed the game. Instead, Brazil had 7 players pressing high up the field. 7 players. Fred, a defensive midfielder, was chasing the ball near the corner flag. Croatia made 1 pass, bypassed the press, and scored on the counter. Brazil lost on penalties because they lacked basic street smarts. So where does this leave the most successful nation in football history? Brazil is trapped in a catch-22. To compete with Europe, they need European discipline and structure. But if they adopt that discipline, they lose the chaos and improvisation that made them unique. Right now, they have the worst of both worlds. They have lost the creativity of 1982 because the streets are gone and the academies format the players like robots. But they haven't mastered the tactical rigor of Germany or France because their coaches are outdated and their federation is corrupt. They are a bad copy of a European team. They are exporting raw materials and importing outdated ideas. The new generation, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Endrick, are incredible talents. But they are soldiers without a general. They are playing for a federation that sees them as assets to be sold, not athletes to be developed. Unless there is a total revolution that sweeps away the feudal corruption of the CBF and reinvents how they teach the game, that fifth star on the jersey will remain a relic of the past. Jogo Bonito is dead, and nobody is coming to save it. I want to know where you stand on this. If you had to choose today, would you rather your national team win ugly like 1994 or lose beautifully like 1982? Let me know in the comments.